Hi there, my name is Ellie, and I'm 14. And I just have to tell you my story. It's about how I told a stupid lie to my friends, which I thought I'd easily get away with. But as it turned out, my lie ended up getting me and someone else into serious trouble. Oh boy, I'm really doing this and confessing I did this, aren't I? Okay, first of all, you need to meet my friends. Gabby. And Tallulah. We became firm friends as we all had a great love for K-pop dancing. We took K-pop dance lessons on the weekends and any chance we got on lunch or breaks at school. We'd slow down K-pop videos and learn the dance routines. And everything was just great. Well, that is until Gabby and Tallulah got boyfriends. I'd been sick, so had missed a party, and they met two boys. I tried to hide it, but I was a bit jealous as they laughed and chatted about the boys and made inside jokes I didn't get. Then I figured it would probably fizzle out soon. And then it got worse as they started to go on loads of double dates and I felt really left out. I talked to my mom about it and told her that I really wanted a boyfriend too, but she told me that these things can't be rushed and it will happen when it's supposed to. Like that helps. No, I needed a boyfriend right now, so I decided to do all I could to get one. I tried to always look my best. But nothing I did worked. What was wrong with me? I was funny like Gabby, and just as clever as Tallulah. And whenever I hung out with Gabby and Tallulah, all they wanted to talk about were their boyfriends now, rather than slow down K-pop videos to learn the dance routines. I wanted to join in, but I couldn't. Like, what if Gabby and Tallulah didn't think I was as interesting anymore, or as grown up as them? And then, one day, I had an idea. What if I pretended I had a boyfriend? I could just do it for a little bit, I thought, just so I could join in again. Then I'd get loads of sympathy when we broke up. All I needed was a realistic way that I would have met him, and it was perfect as that evening my parents took me for a meal. I could have met him at the restaurant. I couldn't wait to tell them all about Harry the next day at school, how we chatted about K-pop for ages, and when I accidentally dripped melted cheese all over my chin, he cleaned it up with a napkin and didn't laugh. When Tallulah asked to see a picture of Harry, I said we were so engaged in conversation I didn't think to take one. When she asked to see his TikTok, I told her that his parents were really strict and he wasn't allowed on social media. It worked, and whatever happened to them, like getting gifts and having first kisses, I quickly followed suit with my own story. But it wasn't long before they insisted on meeting him. I'd been making excuses for weeks now about his dad being a doctor on call and Harry had to look after his little sister Patty at short notice. Even so, it was Tallulah that became the most suspicious. She said that she didn't believe me. They'd not even seen a picture of him. So I promised I'd get one as soon as I was seeing him later. Where was I going to get a picture from? My photoshopping skills weren't even that good either. Richie from next door. I normally never speak to him, as he's much older and, well, really cool. I told him I was doing a Snapchat as I had already seen him doing loads in the garden. Ooh, I couldn't wait to show Gabby and Tallulah the next day. And so it continued. I'd pretend to do an Instagram pic or Snapchat and take more sneaky photos of Richie. But soon it all became draining. Sometimes I'd have to go out on my own and take pictures of food or crazy golf where Harry and I went on dates. It was costing me a fortune. And I'd have to lie to my mom too, saying I was going to Gabby or Tallulah to do math homework. It was all getting too much. But the truth was, I didn't really have a boyfriend, did I? And I'd been so busy faking Harry that I hadn't even had time to meet one anyway. I decided that the best thing was to be honest. That's right. I'd tell them that Harry and I broke up. But as it turned out, I didn't get the chance. One day, Tallulah and Gabby turned up at my house, and Richie was gathering leaves in the front garden. They recognized him. I had to stop them talking. Oh no, my cover would be blown. The shame. That was a close call. Gabby and Tallulah said that Harry was dreamy and an older guy who lives right next door. How lucky I was. Although Tallulah also said he didn't look like he was into K-pop. And I decided once and for all to tell them that Harry wasn't real. We broke up. Oh. But then the most craziest thing happened ever, where my lie was about to catch up to me. I was on one of my pretend dates with Harry, and I was getting evidence. This was the date where I intended to break up with him, as I wasn't ready for a relationship after all. I told Mom that I was going to Gabby's house to study math. She commented that it was surprising how I'm putting all this extra time with math, but not getting better grades. What I didn't know was that Gabby and Tallulah turned up at my house. Oh, and Gabby and Tallulah told Mom that maybe I was with my boyfriend Harry and I was next door. While I was consoling Harry after breaking up with him, Mom had called the police. I wanted to confess the truth, and I did. How I didn't mean to get Richie into trouble, that he wasn't my boyfriend, and I made the whole thing up. I said I was so sorry for what I'd done. The police told me that I got Richie into big trouble because of my lie, that it would be illegal for him to have a relationship with me, and that it was what I had implied. And for a while, nothing was quite the same after that, even though I kept apologizing and really meant it. I'd been so silly. Soon, I realized that sometimes sorry doesn't always cut it. I'd ruined Richie's reputation, and he hadn't done anything to deserve it. I was so remorseful, but I knew I couldn't take it back. I had to find a way to move on. People make mistakes after all, and I can honestly say I will never lie like that, ever again. Thanks so much for letting me share my story with you. Please do leave a comment and let me know. Have you ever lied about something that got you or someone else in trouble? I'd love to hear your stories.
Hi, I'm Poppy, and I'm 15. This year, I fell in love for the very first time. But things turned out very bad. My boyfriend ended up trying to control me, and it totally changed my relationships with my friends and family. If you feel like you're going through something similar, then I hope my story might help. Everything started in the halfpipe at the skateboarding park. For years, I've been hanging out there with Ruby, George, and my little sister, Isla. We'd practice new tricks, and we tried to teach Isla dropouts with not much joy and a lot of bruises on her knees. And when we all hung out at the halfpipe, I'd like to say that we had profound chats about our studies. But really, we just dreamed about what our perfect boyfriend might be like. Ruby loved period dramas, so wanted a chaperone and for him to kiss her hand. George wanted someone who would appreciate his piano playing, and Isla wanted someone who would let her copy their homework. And me, I just wanted a nice guy. Don't we all, right? And then, appearing from the tunnel was Logan. He was so cute and confident, and he had a bright red skateboard with a cool eagle on it. I was sure he would try to chat with Ruby, as boys normally did, but he didn't. He told me that I had a cool skateboard, and I knew he was lying because it was all bashed up. But it was just his excuse to talk to me, right? The two of us got to know each other in the halfpipe, and we had so much in common. We talked about how difficult doing Ollie was, and which place in town had the best pizza. I was sure it was Mr. Pizza King near the skate park, but he insisted it was Pizza Land, and he would take me so I would see. I totally forgot that anyone else was in the park and realized that Ruby and George had taken Isla home. Logan and I met nearly every day in the skate park. He'd show me new tricks that he insisted I'd try, as I'd love them. And he was right, I did. He'd tease me about this spider ring I wore, which I never took off. We'd chat about bad teachers and how reading out poems in class sucked. And I began to open up that my parents had split up, and I sometimes found it difficult. That I went to stay with my father every other weekend, and my mom always got upset when I left. As well as just hanging out together, we all still hung out with Ruby, George, and Isla. Logan got along well with all of them and even figured out a way for Isla to understand how to do dropouts. She was so pleased, and so was Mom as she saved loads on Band-Aids. Sometimes Ruby and George would tease Logan and I when we didn't hear what one of them had said or when they had to wait for us when we hadn't noticed how far we'd fallen behind. I'd laugh along, but Logan was starting to get annoyed by the jokes that the others were making. When they weren't around, he told me they made him feel embarrassed, and he preferred being alone with me anyway. Did I not want that too? I felt torn. I wanted to spend a lot of time with Logan because I was madly in love with him. When we were alone, he was so sweet and funny. He even gave me a special ring to show his love and commitment to me, he said. Although I ended up having to take off my spider ring as Logan thought they didn't go together. The two of us had never felt this way about anyone before. I walked around with a grin that the Cheshire Cat would be jealous of. But soon, Logan hardly seemed to want to hang out with Ruby and George much. He said it was boring and that I acted differently around them. So I split my time between them, my family and friends, which was quite draining. My mom even commented once that it would be nice to see me go to the skate park again, as I hadn't been in ages. Even though I made a real effort to have time for everyone, Logan was still unhappy. He didn't understand why I didn't want to spend all of my free time with him. Did I not love him anymore? Of course I do, I said. He also made fun of Ruby and George all the time. He said that he was sick of Ruby slipping into a British accent like in the period dramas, or George always going on about piano nerves when really he was just fishing for a compliment. Logan even said that Ruby hung out with me so much in the week because her boyfriend was only there on weekends. It was just a childhood friendship that would soon fade, whereas he was here for good. He also said how we should start thinking about which college we both will apply to so we can go together. But secretly, I didn't even know if I wanted to go to college after school. Where had the funny and sweet Logan gone? So I let him make plans, which made him feel better, and he was less moody. One evening, Ruby and George called me and said they wanted to talk. They had been worried because I hardly did anything without Logan anymore. Is anything wrong? They asked. Does Logan treat me okay? I said it was all fine, that I would meet them tomorrow. Just me and them and no Logan. Shortly before I was to meet Ruby and George, Logan unexpectedly came in. Just as I was telling Logan that I was hanging out with them today, a message from George popped up, a heart emoji, and he said, "Looking forward to seeing you later." Logan should know George and I are just friends, but he got mad. "What are you doing? Are you kidding me?" he hissed. He usually spoke so politely. I struggled to convince him that this was all a misunderstanding. I showed him some old texts from George and Ruby, showing him that we used heart emojis all the time. He calmed and then said if there was nothing for him to worry about, then I should give him my passcode so he could look anytime. And if I'm honest, this level of anger from him and distrust caught me off guard. I ended up agreeing. Then he said he'd love to join me, Ruby and George today. And I said, okay. Inviting Logan was not a good idea. The mood was tense for the rest of the afternoon. Both George and Ruby had questioning looks on their faces when Logan wasn't looking. And when he went to use the bathroom, I told him I would explain it later. George was fooling around with Isla to lighten the mood. The two of them had a serious conversation and baby talk with each other. And everyone was laughing tears except Logan. He looked annoyed and embarrassed. I had to go as I had homework and I knew Isla wanted to rearrange her doll's house furniture again. I said goodbye to everyone, including Logan, but I could tell he was moody with me. Later, Ruby and George and I had a video call. They said that I'm a different person when I'm with Logan. I defended Logan. He was under a lot of stress and was just having a bad day, as we all do sometimes. We decided it'd be better to meet without him for the time being. And I found myself lying all the time to please everyone. To Logan, to my friends, it was exhausting. I kept telling them everything was okay between us. I didn't feel like it anymore. Where had Poppy gone? Logan had become even more jealous of my friends. He would send me messages asking where I was and to send him pictures to prove it. He'd get mad if I didn't respond to him right away, even though sometimes I was in the bathroom. A few times, I even saw him at places I was at and could tell he was trying to hide. It didn't feel right. This wasn't love. Then he blamed me for spending so much time with my mom and visiting my father. He didn't have much of a relationship with his own parents. His dad left when he was young and his mom worked a lot, nights. He said my dad left, so I shouldn't bother seeing him. But I didn't want to cause an argument by telling him that my mom was the one who demanded in court that my dad leave because of the way he treated her. Sometimes, though, Logan was also incredibly sweet and romantic. One morning, while still in the dark, as I made my way to the train station to visit my father, a heart made of lit candles awaited me outside the house. Logan was standing next to it with 2 mugs of hot cocoa, my kind of hot cocoa with marshmallows and cream, and a pillow on his bike seat. He drove me to the train station and was simply adorable. Then one day, something happened to make me look at Logan differently. This led to a violent confrontation, and I had never experienced anything like that before. Logan started complaining because he thought Isla was too attached to me. He asked if I was doing it to keep him at a distance. Did I still love him because he loved me? He said she was needy and annoying and lived in an imaginary world. I had enough and asked him not to talk about my sister like that. I then asked him never to speak badly of my family or friends again. He laughed at me, said he was doing me a favor, said he'd heard them talk about me behind my back, but didn't want to tell me. Later, when I came back from getting sodas, he was fuming. I didn't understand why, but then realized it was because I had changed my passcode. I said that it was my phone. I only did it when I noticed him spying on me when I meet up with Ruby and George. If he loved me, then he wouldn't treat me this way. I thought Logan might understand, but he went berserk and pushed me, yelling, "I knew you didn't love me like I love you!" I fell into my shelves and half my books crashed to the floor. I was scared and thought he'd push me again, but he started crying and got on his knees and begged me not to break up with him. He said I made him push him because I made him angry. He said he would change. But as I looked at him, sobbing on his knees, I didn't believe him. I knew he'd just switch again soon. I said we should break up, and he said he'd kill himself. That's when I noticed Mom at the door. She'd come to investigate after wondering what had crashed to the floor. I thought my mom might kick Logan out, but she didn't. She sat down with me, and Logan wanted us to talk, not run away and not face our feelings or get angry about them. She said we must learn to understand them better when we feel strongly about something. Logan began to realize that his behavior was completely out of control and that he was dealing with a lot of unresolved issues that had nothing to do with me, more with his own parents. I also thought about setting boundaries early in a relationship rather than doing things that made me uncomfortable just to please someone else. Logan agreed to see a therapist, and I knew it was the right thing to break up with him. I'm grateful that I had the help of my mom because others might not. I realized how much Ruby and George tried to warn me, but I didn't want to listen at the time. If any of this is familiar, then I do hope you might talk to someone about it. Hey, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a school subject where we learn about love and boundaries and consent? Falling in love should be fun and exciting, and not make you feel sad and worried all the time. I'd love to hear what you think of my story, so please leave a comment. Respect and look out for each other.
Don't you find that the worst thing about being a teenager is you're not in control of your own life? Like when my school organized a bunch of exchange students to come stay on the weekend of my big ballet show. But it turned out to be the best summer of my life. I'm Krista. I'm 16. When I met the girl of my dreams, I had no idea she was really a princess. See if you would have figured it out. But before we get to that, can you guess what I'm gonna say? That's right, like and subscribe. I'm super shy and nervous around new people. Know what I mean? So when I got chosen to host one of the visiting students from some tiny European country I'd never even heard of, I was insanely anxious. I just find new people really hard to get along with. Whenever they expect me to speak, I just feel like I'm under so much pressure. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they think I'm stupid? What if... I know it sounds weird, but the only time I don't feel anxious is when I'm on stage in front of thousands of people, dancing. When the teacher read out the name of my exchange partner, Olga, everyone laughed. My neighbor Todd was like, "Krista has one of the teachers." And another kid said, "I bet she has a mustache." Our teacher was furious and put them in detention. She said, "See, this kind of infantile behavior is why you need to meet people from other countries." I was so nervous. Olga was coming to live in my house for a week. What would she be like? There was so much to do, but I worked out there was just enough time to meet the coach and then make my important ballet rehearsal. Do you think the coach arrived on time? Of course not. I wanted to welcome Olga, but my ballet teacher would be so angry with me if I was late. Finally, the coach arrived. They were so slow getting off and I was running out of time to get to the rehearsal. Finally, the teacher called out Olga. I hadn't expected Olga, the exchange student, to be hot. My heart melted. My knees turned to jelly, but I couldn't think about that now. I was like, "Come on, Krista, focus." Just then, my dad arrived, and the first weird thing happened. Olga just stood next to the car. I thought maybe car doors work differently where she's from. I yanked open the door. I felt rude, but we were so late. She got in and just sat there. Then I looked back at the coach and realized Olga hadn't picked up her bag. There was only one left on the street, and Olga just watched me carry it. What did she think we were, her servants? When we got to the rehearsal, Olga came in with me. I said, "Sorry, big show." Olga smiled and nodded. I raced onto the stage. I had made it, but I looked around. The biggest, most difficult number in the show is a duet, but my duet partner was nowhere to be seen. I did the steps anyway. But if you've ever danced, you'll know there isn't much point in one person practicing a duet. I felt so let down. After the rehearsal, we took Olga home. It was all so cringe. She seemed really nice, but she didn't speak any English. All she managed was ballet, yes, and I was just as bad. I thought she was so pretty. It was difficult to know how to make her feel welcome, especially as she didn't understand a word I said. I was relieved to go to bed, even if I was sharing with my brothers so Olga could have my room. The next day, I was up super early. I was desperate to practice for the show. When I saw that Olga was up early too, my heart sank. She was so awkward, and I needed to dance. She watched me for a bit. Then she appeared with a pair of my old ballet shoes. Did she want me to teach her how to do ballet? No, she was amazing at ballet. It was so much better than practicing my duet alone. And we danced until evening. I knew the duet so much better by the time I went to bed. I felt like dancing was helping me get to know Olga, but there were still some strange things about her. She seemed confused no one tidied her room. Did she live in a hotel? The very next day, it was the big show. I was excited. But then, my teacher rushed up with terrible news. My duet partner had sprained her ankle and would not be in the show. I was devastated. Then, I realized Olga could dance the duet with me. Dancing with Olga was like nothing I'd ever felt before. We didn't need words. Honestly, I think that was the moment we fell in love. It turned out Olga was just as shy as I was, so it took her a while to find the courage to talk. But when she did, we had the best week of our lives. She had never eaten any of my favorite chocolate because they don't sell it in her country. She had never rollerbladed. I asked her why not, and she said sometimes her parents were strict about what she could do. I took her to try bubble tea. I'm not sure she liked it. But then some boys started play fighting near us. I was like, "Guys, cut it out." When all of a sudden, 2 men dragged them away. I was like, mall cops, even though they didn't have the mall jackets on. And Olga was like, "I see, mall cops." And weirdly, one time after we had watched a ballet performance, this man took Olga's photo, and I'm sure that the same guys from the mall stopped him. But Olga insisted that the man taking the photo must have thought she was someone else and the men that stopped him. Well, maybe I was having deja vu. Being around Olga was sometimes anything but normal, but I didn't think about it too much after that as I started to become nervous about what it would be like when I stayed at Olga's house. And soon enough, it was my turn to be the weird exchange student who doesn't know anything about the country they are visiting. It was so great to see Olga again. Even though we messaged and FaceTimed almost every day, when I saw her in real life, I knew my love for her had only grown while we'd been apart. But she seemed kind of nervous, and not in a good way. Did she still feel the same? What if she changed her mind about me now that I was visiting her home? Olga hadn't told me much about her parents or her house, and I was about to find out that Olga wasn't quite what I thought she was. When the car pulled up to collect us, it wasn't her mom or dad. It was a chauffeur. We waited while he got out and opened the car door for us. Then he shut us in. I never forget a face. I was like, Olga, that chauffeur looks just like that mall cop we saw when we were having bubble tea and when that man took your photo. Is he your security guard? She said that he was, and she was sorry for lying and saying I might have deja vu. She wanted to tell me the truth, but her parents insisted she couldn't. I asked if her mom or dad were like a politician or rich, but she just smiled and told me how much she'd missed me and how much fun we were going to have together. When we got to Olga's house, it wasn't a house. It was a castle. Can you believe it? An actual castle with turrets and a moat and butlers and everything. Olga said, Krista, I didn't want to tell you before, but my dad is the king of our country. She lied to me because she also just wanted to see what it would be like to feel like a normal person. She said the longer she didn't tell me, the harder it got. And I wasn't angry with Olga, but I did feel kind of weird that I had fallen head over heels with someone who had hidden something so important from me. By the time I got to my bedroom, my clothes were already unpacked. I'd always thought having servants would be great, but now I didn't know where anything was. Over the next few days, I began to see how people treated Olga. Everyone was so polite, but also kind of cold. I began to see how Olga might want a week off being a princess when she came to stay with me. Plus, it was way more like a job than I had ever imagined. Night after night, there were these enormous banquets that we had to attend. The first one was fun, but they got pretty boring pretty quickly. Luckily, Olga was keen to make me try new things. I tried skiing. I went out in a sailboat. I had weird melted cheese that was way tastier than I expected. Best of all, we saw some of the greatest ballet dancers in the world. All too soon, it was time for me to go home. We had to face up to the fact that we wouldn't see each other for a really long time. Would our love wear out like an old ballet shoe? Would she change her mind? Then me and Olga agreed we would keep dating, even though we're oceans apart. She's going to come and stay all summer. We're going to help run the children's ballet school, go rollerblading, and eat chocolate. Because I might be dating a princess, but she knows I love her just for who she is. How would you feel if you suddenly found out your boyfriend or girlfriend was royalty? Comment Princess Castle Nightmare if you want to know the crazy thing that happened when I stayed in her castle one time.